Comic Book Savant, The List. Welcome back to the Comic Book Savant. I'm your host, James Harris. This episode, we're going to be doing a list, the list, where I count down. This episode, we're counting down my favorite Star Wars movies, films from least favorite to favorite. I've done these, I've named this episode type so many different times. It's been countdown, top 10 list, all that. Just boiled it down to simply the list when I do these episodes, where I do my favorite all-time countdowns of things, be it films, comics, characters in films or comics, whatever. I just felt like it was easier to follow just having it under the umbrella of the list than having countdown, top 10, all that stuff. It just seemed easier. So I hope it's easier to follow for everyone else. So let me jump into it with my Star Wars movies. I recently literally been on, during the pandemic, we've had so much time at home. Me and my wife normally go to the movies quite a bit, which we haven't been able to do. I think it's almost been coming close to a year. I think next month will be a year the last time I was in a movie theater, because literally, I don't know if I told you guys the story but right when the pandemic really hit here in the U.S., I was actually out of town. I was in Connecticut for my daughter's gender reveal for my they're here now, my grandsons, my twin grandsons. So we were there for their gender reveal at the time, and I took my firstborn grandson out. He wanted to go see what was the Pixar movie with Tom Holland, and I liked the movie. I can't even remember what the movie was, but the Pixar movie came out. That was literally the last movie I went to go see. We came back, I think, like March 15th or 16th or something like that. And I remember getting off the plane, and everybody, at that point in time, it was like it was here. They were starting to put things in place, and we literally got right off the plane, picked up our car, and went straight to Sam's Club to like pack up. So it's been so crazy to look like it's almost been a year since all that really jumped off. And in that time, I've watched and read so much, because we've had more time at home, when normally, you would go to movie theaters, you would be out going to sporting events, family events. All of that got shut down, and I've consumed so much content at home via rewatching old movies, which Star Wars was one of them, but just a bunch of old franchises. I fell in love in rewatching, franchises, like not just Star Wars, but like I've gone back and watched all the Jurassic Park movies and all the Lethal Weapon movies. Like, I've jumped around, but it's cool because you have something that you can engage in and watch 3, 4, 5 movies of an ongoing series and enjoy. And I've had fun doing it, but that's besides the point. Just a little tangent, giving you some insight on me as a person. But getting back to the list of Star Wars films, what is in my least favorite slot would be Star Wars, The Clone Wars. This is not the animated television show. This is the movie that launched the animated show Star Wars, The Clone Wars. This came out in 2008. Going back and rewatching this, it was kind of painful, because the show's so good, and you could tell this was definitely like a pilot. And how the story surrounding this movie goes is that this was actually the first few episodes of the show. They decided they wanted to do a theatrical release, so then they kind of took the first few episodes, strung them together into a movie to release it. Kind of glad in the long term they did that, because they had some time in between these episodes and the show to kind of iron out some things, so they hit the ground a little bit running. Not saying it wasn't slow parts during the 7 seasons of the Clone Wars, but I'm going to talk about that in another episode. I went back and watched that whole series from episode 1 to all the way to season 7. And I'm gonna do a binge at your leisure episode talking about the Clone Wars uh, full series down the road. So that'll be coming sometime soon. But yeah, this was not my favorite movie experience at all. Next on my list would be Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, released in 1999. Yeah. The funny thing about this, um, I saw this movie like 7 or 8 times in the theaters, and that's a long movie. It's long, and I don't know why. I kept getting roped in with friends because they knew I liked Star Wars, so everybody kept asking me to go see it with them, and I just couldn't say no. So I kept going. And at the time, I thought Darth Maul was the coolest thing. I still think Darth Maul is like a phenomenal character. Um, so I just would go watch it for his scenes, oddly enough. And I really love Qui-Gon Jinn as a character. Liam Neeson in that character I really liked. Those were my two kind of favorite parts of the movie that would help me kind of get through it, is those two. But yeah, I think I saw it 7 or 8 times in the theater. As far as in modern cinema, I think that's the most I've ever been to see a movie in one shot, was like that movie. And I still, for the life of me now, don't know why. It was so much other things I could have did with my time, but I was young. I didn't know any better. That had to be what it was. I didn't know any better. Next on my list is Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. This was released in 2002. Yeah, it's better than The Phantom Menace, kinda. And I always say this, and I preface this to most people, is that I watch like deleted scenes and so forth like that. Um, I like the deleted scenes and wish they were included in the movie because it gives some more context to Padme and Anakin's relationship. It's a scene where I think Anakin's outside talking to Padme's father, and she's in the house with her like mom and sister, and they're talking about, they can see how much she has feelings for him but trying to hide them, and like, is he aware, kind of thing. And Anakin is kind of talking, trying to get a feel for her father and feeling him out, trying to find out more about Padme. So those little scenes there add a little bit more credence and gives a little bit more chemistry, that it's less awkward, that it was like him trying to coerce her to have this relationship with him, that it was a more mutual thing, and that she truly had feelings for him. And it makes the relationship less weird throughout the movie if you had that in there. And it wasn't much to cut, and I felt like it only would have helped the believability of the relationship side of things if they kept it in, if it was supposed to be about their whole romance, because that's really what that movie's about. But what do I know? I never made a film before, so I don't know how that works. I just know it makes sense if that's what you were trying to sell, and that film was trying to sell us believing their love and their relationship and it growing. But yeah, what do I know? Anyhow, next movie on the list is Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This was released in 2005. The best of the prequel trilogy of movies by far. Yeah, and it holds up, and I appreciate it even more now. And rewatching it, it's it's the most solid of those three prequels, I will have to say. But I feel like all three of the movies are strengthened by the Clone Wars television show and the subsequent shows as well, like Star Wars Rebels that came after the Clone Wars television show. They fill in so many gaps with these characters and add so much more substance to the characters as well that they could not get captured within the movies. So overall, I think more fondly of the prequel movies based on the accompanying content, which I'm going to touch on this point at the end of when I go through the end of the list. Then the next film on my list is Star Wars this is episode 9, Rise of the Skywalker. It was released in 2019, the last of the sequel trilogy, and it was a mess. So I could say it was a mess. It had some decent scenes throughout, but the story, bringing back Sheev, it was a jumbled mess. It was, I guess, somewhat fan servicey. Parts of it was really fun, but parts of it was just why and why. But neither here nor there on that. We're not even going to linger on that. It was what it was. Some people like it, I think. I'm kind of middle of the road. It was what it was. It brought the sequel trilogy to a conclusion. How satisfying a conclusion it was, it depends on who you are, how you view it. It was what it was. It's the best way I could say it at the end of the day. Next on my list is Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. And this was a movie that was totally polarizing for me personally. This is the funny part about this movie. I watched it the first time when it came out, because I remember it came out like Christmas time that year. I went to go see it. And, my silent partner in all this is my wife. And we always discuss a movie right after we leave the movie. And I remember we left the movie theater. And I'm like, yo, she was like, well, babe, what did you think about the movie? Because she always asked me that question. And I just had this blank look on my face. And I said, I legit don't know. I just sat here and watched this movie. And I don't know. Because a lot of my reviews I don't do them just myself. I confer to her. And then we will have whole conversations. And so the reviews that you normally hear on movies and even television shows, or a lot of times, are collaborative with her. She's just shy about getting behind the microphone. At some point, I hope to incorporate her more into the show, because she is truly my backbone to all of this and my support system. But she does have her input in this, in the things that you hear me say. So it's just not a one-sided review. It's me in my shadow. She asked me. I had no legit answer. So I said, do you mind, coming with me tomorrow? I want to come back and rewatch it. Maybe I need to process it overnight, come back and watch it the next day. We did that. Came and watched it the next day. That was the good old days when Movie Pass was a thing and you could go to a movie every day. So we went during that time. She had a break from work. We both had that time off. And I think we went to the movies every day, like for 2 weeks. But I went back the next day. Got to see this again. I went back. She asked me again when we walked out of the theater, what did you think? I said, I don't know. And it has been, 4 years? I have watched this movie, I don't know how many other times now, at least 2 or 3 more other times. And if you ask me the same thing, I'll tell you the same thing now. I still don't know how I feel about this movie. It's that polarizing. It's parts of it that I really like, and it's other parts of it I truly dislike. And it's just it is the most, I think, polarizing movie out of all the Star Wars movies, because I legit still don't have a definitive feeling or point of reference of how I feel about this movie, which is so weird. I tend to veer on the side that I liked it more than I disliked it, because there's certain scenes and aspects in the movie, parts I can pick out in aspects that Rian Johnson touched on that I really enjoyed, but then there was some stuff I truly detested and don't seem very Star Wars at all. But I think when I weigh it out, I really like this part and that part. I say when I look at the movie, it's more parts that I like, more so than I realized, than I disliked. So I would probably say I liked it, kind of, sort of. If the light hits it right on a certain day, I kind of, yeah, that's where I lie with Last Jedi. Next movie on the list is Return of the Jedi. Good old episode 6. Yeah, I don't know what to say about Return of the Jedi. I probably like it the least out of the original trilogy of movies. Yeah, it is so funny because I tell this story all the time that it's I think the one and only Star Wars movie I never saw in the theater. It was sold out, and my mom desperately tried to get tickets for me, and it was sold out for so long. Like when it was released, it was just a weird time, in when I was a kid in the 80s. And this movie came out in like 83. I think we're still living in Connecticut. It was about 2 years prior till I moved to North Carolina, and my mom tried and I like part of me. I still like. I see always tell the story. She's like, you never forgave me for not getting tickets to the Return of the Jedi, and I was like, yo, real talk, probably so, because like that's how much I just loved the theatrical experience of watching the Star Wars movies. And it's weird that through all these versions of the movie, that's the one I've never saw in theaters, and it still bugs me to this day. And it will probably bug me to the day I died that I did not see that one movie in the theater. But I saw The Phantom Menace in the theater like 7 or 8 times. I want to say it was probably 8, but I've seen that not one time in a movie theater. I don't even like the movie like that. It's meh for me. I like aspects of it. Um, but it is what it is. Kind of like I said, it's my least favorite out of the trilogy of movies. Some people really love The Return of the Jedi. Again, it was cute, but it's okay. I just say it's okay. Next on my list is Solo, a Star Wars story. This came out in 2018. Some people say this was like too pedestrian of a movie. I feel like it's a fun Star Wars movie. It's just really fun. I like seeing Han and the aspect, and was so much made out of this movie. Did we need this movie? No, we didn't need it, but it was a fun movie. And coming off of Rogue One, which was such a heavy movie, we needed a light, fun Star Wars movie in the darkness from the sequel trilogy. It was kind of a palate cleanser that we needed in between. I think it's fun. I've rewatched this movie numerous times and thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed the actors and the performances throughout the movie, and it's like my comfort food movie of the Star Wars trilogy. It's like if I want to have a good time and kind of laugh and joke and just have it on in the background, this is the movie I would like throw on as just for a good time. Can have it playing in the background and be like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. This is the film for me. So I like it more than a lot of other people had seemed to like this movie, because a lot of people dogged this movie when it came out. I thought it was perfectly fine. Next for me on my list is Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. I've grown on this movie, and my next pick helped enhance this movie even more for me. I've always, like as a kid, I really liked Star Wars because it started everything else, but it all connects with these next two picks, but I'll get into it further later. New Hope released in 1977. Yes, I actually saw this. I was born in 75, but the first movie I ever went to go see in a movie theater was actually Star Wars. It was re-released in the early 80s once I was old enough to go to the movie, and it was legit the first movie I ever saw in a movie theater in the early 80s. And then I saw the subsequent movies as well. It's funny that I actually saw the first Star Wars A New Hope in the theater, but did not see Return of the Jedi. I'm going to go to the next topic because it still stings a little bit. I'm going to move on. It's fine. I'm going to be okay. Next movie for me would be Rogue One, a Star Wars story, released in 2006. I feel like this is the unsung hero of the Star Wars movies, because it was a great standalone piece about war. Did not have a didn't have a Jedi-ish to the very end of the movie, or a Sith, former Jedi. I'm about to say it was no lightsabers in the movie, but it was at the very end, in a very awesome scene of Vader. Probably the best on-screen film fight scene with Vader, just wrecking shop, which was phenomenal. Loved the characters. Heavy movie. Dark because no one made it out alive at the end out of our cast of protagonists that we follow throughout the movie, which is truly sad, but it works as a movie. And it's crazy that this movie was developed on like one line of the crawl in a Star Wars A New Hope, and they developed this whole movie. If you watched Rogue One and you've never read the book or listened to the audiobook, it's Rogue One Catalyst is the name of the book. I talked about the book, and I think I actually did a review on it on the podcast. I listened to the audiobook of that. Phenomenal, and it adds so much more context and gives this movie so much more weight and gravitas. If you listen to that book, it gives so much great feedback on Jen and her father and the whole development of the Death Star, and Yeah, it just adds so much layer of in Krennic's relationship. Like it makes that movie so much more with that accompanying piece, and I can't recommend it enough. After reading that book, and then I read the book or listened to the book before the movie, so it added so much context to that movie. Like I said, it's worth the listen. So if you haven't ever, and you even mildly like Rogue One, you owe it to yourself. It's a treat to listen to that audio book or read the actual book, because some people are more readers. I've become a audiobook listener. It's totally worth it. Last but not least, my favorite movie, and I've never made any qualms to anyone about this, favorite Star Wars movie of all time. I don't think is anything that will ever change it to this point, because since I've seen it, it has been, and nothing has wavered from that. It's Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, greatest Star Wars movie of all time. Drop the Mic, released in 1980. What? My favorite Star Wars movie of all time. Even in when I did before I did this for this episode, I rewatched all these movies, and it's still just the best, hands down to me. It just is the quintessential Star Wars movie. So much happens. We're introduced to Yoda, which has become such a pivotal character in the whole Skywalker saga of character, how important he is. It just holds up well. And that goes for me to speak on this whole part. In doing the rewatch of all of the movies, one thing became evident to me. These movies, especially the original trilogy, don't hold up well. I guess because with so much stuff being remastered, and I own all these movies at this point. You guys know I do all digital across the board, so I own all the movies digitally. I recently, within the past year, I had one 4K TV in the living room. Got a great sale right when the pandemic hit. On two other 4K. So now I have a 4K TV in my office and in my bedroom as well, so I can watch 4K anywhere. A lot of these movies were remastered when they were put out on Disney Plus in 4K, but they weren't in 4K. The digital versions I bought on iTunes, that has recently changed, so everything's 4K across the board now. So I rewatched these on Disney Plus on my big TVs in 4K. That's a mistake. Dang, they don't hold up well. They don't look that good in 4K. You can definitely tell these movies are super dated. Even the prequel movies, oof, a lot of green screen. It really shows in 4K. It does not hold up well. It doesn't take away from the substance of the movies, but wow, it shows. Yeah, 4K is not for everything. Oof, I chihuahua. It really tells. One thing I noticed is that I enjoy the movies overall, the Star Wars movies. What I they're just small glimpses and snapshots. I think what carries more weight for me, and I'll talk about these individually, because I rewatched all of the Clone Wars. I rewatched Rebels, and I watched because so many of you guys had told me about Resistance, and I had not watched Resistance. Well, it was canceled, I think, after the second season. So I was able to watch that on Disney Plus. So I rewatched all of that. And through the audio books that I've read, I've bought quite a few. I haven't listened to them all because I've been watching so much other content, but I have them and I'm going to go through them. The audiobooks that I've listened to so far have been Catalyst, which is tied to Rogue One, and I listened to the Ahsoka novel, which is awesome because I'm a huge Ahsoka fan. I've never made any qualms about that. And I think I listened to another one in there. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I have a bunch of them. I have the Thrawn books. I picked up all the stuff that's tied to that came out via Disney, that are now all of the books that are canon. I've been going back, picking them up through my Audible subscriptions. I just have to go through and continue to listen to them. So that those add more context and more depth to the characters that were introduced in the movies, and even the comics have done a better job fleshing out the characters. The movies are just set as pieces that introduce us to the world and the character. But if you're a true Star Wars fan and you haven't read some of the great comic series, listened to the books or read the books, or watched some of this supplemental material as far as these shows, you're missing out. If you've never watched the Clone Wars, you must. If you're a Star Wars fan, if you've never watched Rebels, you must. It is essential viewing. If you own Disney Plus, all of these shows, I can tell you this for sure with the television shows. I literally just watched them over the past like 6 months. I've watched every single show that I just named. Then you have The Mandalorian, which adds even more context to the world as well, and we have 2 seasons of that. So you can throw that shrimp on the Barbie as well, and throw that in for if you're a Star Wars fan and you want more context, and if you like some of these characters, they've been fleshed out other places. Trust me, I know, because I've watched it, I've read it, I know. So again, it's a good glimpse, but it's just a small portion. It's so much other great stories and other mediums that these characters are fleshed out over besides just the movie. So if you're let down by something with a particular character that you've seen other places, check it out via comics, books, or television shows, and you might get what you're looking for those particular characters. And I'll do a list of recommendations of if you're a Star Wars fan, what to check out outside of the films somewhere down the road. Just let me know if you guys really want to see something like that, and if you vote on it and tell me you do, I will definitely do it ASAP. So just let me know after you hear this episode if you want to or not. That's all I have for you guys for this episode. I know this was a little longer than the format that we're on now, but I definitely wanted to cover that. As always, you can follow me over at comicbooksavant.com. That's the website. You can follow me on social media at Twitter at comicbooksavant, Instagram at comicbooksavant, or Facebook, which is facebook.com/comicbooksavant, all one word. It's also a Facebook group, but the links to it is on the Facebook page. It's on the website as well. So you can just link it to it from there, and it'll pull you right in. You request to join the group, and I'll add you right on. I hope you guys are staying safe out there. Love you all so much for your continued support. As always, stay safe, and until next time, take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.